Well, hello, and welcome back to the PJH Writing Command Center for our second episode of our God Bless the Keg Publishing LLC podcast. And I am Paul John Hausleben of God Bless the Keg Publishing, and I am the flagship author. I am your host here today for the podcast. I am the chief photographer, chief cook, bottle washer, and I do everything here at God Bless the Keg Publishing LLC with a little help from some friends. But welcome back for episode 2, and I'm going to kind of pick up where I left off on episode 1. This is another sports rant. I'm going to warn you. And I promise that these are not always these podcasts are not always going to be sports rants. I had a friend who listened in and said they really enjoyed episode 1, but they hoped that I would tell some of my stories. And I said, yeah, they're coming down the road, but I had to get some of this stuff off my chest. And, I get into the Irish whiskey, and you never know what comes out of me. But at any rate, I didn't know if I'd get this podcast going today because I'm pressed for time. It is Easter weekend. Got a lot of projects and a lot of things going on, and I'm going to digress a little bit here, but it is now the springtime, of course, and it's what I call blower season. And I don't know about you, but do you remember when landscapers used rakes? Now it's blowers, and the blowers are sort of like the hot birds, as my old man used to call them, in the trees in late summer. It's a constant drone in the background. It must be like if you live near an airport and you kind of get used to the planes coming and going all day long. And I really want to interview a landscape blower dude because they have this thing with the blower. And it's got a little throttle hoozy on there. And so they blow whatever it is they're blowing. And at this time of year, I guess it's the clippings off the grass because no one bags anymore. That takes too much time. And actually, the clippings add nitrogen to the grass. So if you do it properly. Anyway, I'm digressing. But they blow what it is they're blowing. But when they walk to the next mission, they're like a guy sitting on a 1968 Triumph at the traffic light. And he's got to rev the throttle so everybody pays attention to him. So as they walk to the next mission, they hit the throttle. They're not even blowing anything. Why are you hitting the throttle? Let it idle till you get to whatever the next thing it is that you're going to blow. Anyway, Mr. Blower and the landscape crew was outside the apartment here, the Writing Command Center, just an apartment. We're in Henrico, Virginia. And it's allergy season here. Oh, my goodness gracious. So the blower's stirring everything up. I don't have any soundproof studios or anything fancy here, so I was subject to the noise. But anyway, I digressed. But the blowers are gone. Thank goodness. And I want to pick up kind of where I left off a little bit. And I gave you some homework from the last episode. But I want to make some points about the great Gordie Howe. And, yeah, I'm an advocate for Gordie Howe, as is Wayne Gretzky. And Gretzky has his number 99 retired in all arenas. Rightly so. The great Gretzky. But my goodness. And he took 99 as an honor to number 9, Gordie Howe's number. Why isn't Mr. Hockey's jersey retired in every NHL arena? It seems to me to be a travesty. An absolute travesty. That Gordie Howe's jersey, his number 9, is not retired and hung in every NHL arena. I was a Hartford Whalers guy, and I have no animosity towards the Carolina Hurricanes, the Canes Whalers, as I call them, because they do honor their heritage. They remember history from episode number 1. And they honor it with a throwback Whalers night, and they wear the iconic uniforms of the Hartford Whalers, that amazing logo, the greatest logo in all sports. The greatest uniforms. They are spectacular, with the upside-down whale's tail for the H and the whale. It's just amazing. I like them all, the blues and greens, the aways and the homes. I particularly like the white and the green, though. And, of course, Gordie Howe finished his NHL time after the WHA merged and the Whalers came into the NHL, and he played with his 2 sons. Great story. And I respect the Canes for having the throwback night. It's really cool. It's fun to see the old uniforms and honor the heritage, and that should be saluted. Retire Gordie Howe's Whalers jersey and put it at the arena in Raleigh. What is it, PNC? And Ron Francis, the great captain who actually brought a Stanley Cup, helped bring a Stanley Cup, of course, to Carolina after the move from Hartford. And, he's retired. Make it a half Whalers and a half Canes jersey, huh? Come on. So let's advocate. Write letters to Mr. Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner and the board of governors, and say, look, retire Gordie Howe in every arena. Put it up there. Half Detroit, half Whalers. Put it up there. And so anyway, that's a throwback from episode 1. And I gave you some homework. And, all this goes back to conversations that I've had with mostly young people, but not always young people. Avid sports fans who constantly insist that the modern athlete is so much better and so much bigger and so much stronger and so much more well-conditioned, and there's no question that there were greats years ago, but they would never succeed in whatever modern sport it is, be it the NFL or be it the NBA or be it the NHL or whatever. I think Pele's still got to score some goals in the Premier League or in any league, but anywho, even in football / soccer. But I want to dwell today because I kind of, right at the end of episode 1, remembered Major League Baseball and how baseball has changed. And I'm a baseball guy. My family was huge baseball. Hockey's my favorite sport, but my old man, my family, huge New York Yankee fans. And my cousin David and I'm going to get cousin David on a podcast. This guy is Mr. Yankee. He should be the general manager in waiting, or he should be like Don Zimmer, the old bench coach for the Yankees, because cousin David is Mr. Yankee. We are going to get him on this podcast to give you a Yankee review, a Yankee report card, maybe a couple times during the season. He's amazing. But we text her in all the games. We follow all the games the best I can. When I'm working and doing other things, Dave keeps me abreast of what's happening in the sports world. But Major League Baseball, maybe. Well, the NFL has changed a lot. And I don't want to rant too much about fiddling with the rules. But this fiddling with the rules, and I touched upon the NHL with the bigger pads and changing the crease and the trapezoid and getting rid of the neutral zone and 2-line passes. But Major League Baseball, with their constant fiddling, the ghost runner, please. Can we get rid of the bloody ghost runner? Is there a more awful idea ever invented? And I get they don't want 11, 12, 13, 14 inning games. Most of the time, when a ball game's tied, it's settled by about the 11th or 12th inning. So the ghost runner, at least put the ghost runner, like Cousin Dave says, at first base, not at second base. But of all the sports, I think Major League Baseball, other than nobody knows what a catch is or pass interference is in the NFL, Major League Baseball has become a mess, primarily because, and I'm going to focus on pitching. Pitchers just don't have the same philosophy anymore. They come in throwing, everything is 95, 96, 99 mile an hour fastball and blah, blah, blah. And it's all about the accuracy of that pitch. Because let's face it, like I mentioned in the NHL podcast, I was an old goalie. I had no problems with a hard slap shot. It could be 95, it could be 100 miles an hour. I'm good. If I got a clear path to that shot, I'm going to stop it. Some guys would shoot a puck and it's hard on the edge and you only see the edge of the puck. But when they get a little air, those shots are hard to follow because you don't see the whole puck. But when they get a little air under the puck and you see the bottom of the puck, this is an easy save to make. Look, I'm a goalie. I've been stitched up, broken up, banged up. I got 100 and some stitches in my head alone. I'm not worried. But you're not going to scare me with a hard slap shot. Now, a deflection in front and a screen and a little redirection and a tip, that's what I'm worried about. So when you throw this 96 mile an hour fastball straight down the middle of the plate, and it doesn't move, and it's not in the right spot, a guy like Aaron Judge is hitting that to the moon every time. Every single time. These are major league hitters, and they will prey upon misplaced pitches. So everything now is accuracy and analytics and computers. And I ranted to Cousin Dave the other night because the Yankees had a young fella come in relief, and he was doing fantastic. I think he struck out the side. And then they got up in the next inning, and he got the first out in the next inning, and here comes Booney taking him out of the game because they can't overextend themselves these days. But everybody will say how much better the modern athlete is. So let's look at the stats. And I went back on pitching, and I picked, 1, 2, 3, 4 pitchers. Some from what many people might consider the olden era, but it's still modern baseball. One from the middle and one from current times. And I looked at the pitching. And I looked at the size of the pitchers, their weight, everything. So let's have some fun with this. For those that think that the modern athlete is so much better. Look at I'm not going to focus on hitters because I don't care. Ted Williams is going to come up and he's going to still be an amazing hitter. Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente. Take a look at Roberto Clemente's throw from the outfield on a fly. It's a thing of beauty. He's still going to be able to throw that baseball like that. So let's look at the pitching. And then I'll tell you a little story. It's a bar story. Let me tell you that first. Some of my stories are always about when sitting in bars, and I guess that sets a precedence. But I was in Raleigh on the road when I used to travel all the time. And I remember it was baseball playoffs, and it was the Cleveland Ball Club in the playoffs. And I want to say it was around 2017, I think they made the playoffs, but, they got bumped out in the first round. And I don't know if they were the Guardians or the Indians at this point. But there was a young fella from Cleveland sitting next to me. And, he was obviously disappointed because the Cleveland team is getting beat up. And he said how such and such was such a great pitcher, and he can't believe that he's not doing well, and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, the Cleveland Indians / Guardians have had, great pitchers over the years. Oh, this guy is the greatest pitcher. I can't remember his name. And I think going back to old Pete, the bartender, we forget history. And I was lucky because my family, my old man in particular, but the rest of my family too, loved baseball. And they taught me to respect and honor old Yankees, old Mets, old Dodgers, the history of the team. My old man loved old timers. He would tell me the history of every single old Yankee that came creeping up to the plate. He could remember their highs and lows. He would call a guy a bum. He would call a guy a hero. But this young fella obviously might have been a Cleveland fan, and was from Cleveland, Ohio. He had no idea. I said, well, you guys had Bob Feller. You had Bob Lemon. You had Sudden Sam McDowell. He's like, I don't know who they are. How can you be a fan and not of Cleveland and not know Bob Feller? Bob Lemon, Sudden Sam McDowell. He had a terrible drinking problem and just never really got his control underway. But in 1965, and I told the young man this, he had 325 strikeouts. And we're going to talk about strikeouts. In 1970, he had 304 strikeouts. And this was a guy who was, certainly, a great pitcher for a few years, but he's not going in the Hall of Fame. The young man didn't even know about him. And Bob Feller, I think, lost some time to the military, but, obviously one of the greatest pitchers of all time and in the Hall of Fame. But, I don't think you'll ever see 300 strikeouts again because these starting pitchers don't pitch enough innings to ever get 300 strikeouts. But very few ever did it, nonetheless, to do it 2 times. And there's a guy who's kind of obscure in history who did it 2 times. I mean, Nolan Ryan, of course, holds the record, 383 strikeouts in a year. He pitched 27 years. But the modern athlete's so much better. The last 300K is 2019 with Verlander and Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole had 326. I don't think you'll see 300 strikeouts anymore because they just don't pitch enough. So let's get back to my pitchers I picked. Sandy Koufax, he was 6'2", 210 pounds, which surprised me. That was a lot bigger than I thought he was, and he didn't appear that big. But in 1965, Sandy Koufax had 26 wins, 8 losses. He had a 2.04 ERA. He started 43 games. He completed 27 games. He pitched 335.2 innings, had 382 strikeouts, and 2 shutouts. 1966. Once more, Mr. Koufax had 27 complete games in 1 year. His record was 27 wins, 9 losses, 1.73 ERA. He pitched 323 innings, 317 strikeouts, 5 shutouts. In his career, he pitched 137 complete games. And Koufax did get terrible elbow problems and arm problems and did have to retire relatively early. Unbelievable. Then it was the greatest year ever by what most people consider the greatest pitching performance of all time. And there might be a little asterisk because they changed the size of the mound that year by a little bit, and it might have skewed the trajectory, but it's still remarkable. Bob Gibson, he was 6'1", 189 pounds. In 1968, Mr. Gibson had 22 wins, 9 losses, 34 games started. He had 13 shutouts, 304.2 innings pitched. He had 28 complete games, 268 strikeouts. In his career, Mr. Gibson had 255 complete games. Last year, in the combined major leagues, there were 26 complete games because they can't overextend these guys. And that's the strategy. The analytics and the computer says, take them out. And I don't want to hear that Koufax and Gibson didn't face quality batters. Look down some of the rosters. Mr. Mays, Mr. Clemente, it goes on and on. Willie McCovey. A 1.12 ERA by Mr. Gibson. And here's the most incredible stat. During the 1968 season, Mr. Gibson was never removed from the mound for a relief pitcher. The only time he was taken out of the ball game was for a pinch hitter for strategy reasons. 6 times. Think about that. He was never removed for a relief pitcher. Let's go to Ron Guidry, Yankees. 5'11", 161 pounds. A very smallish, tall, lanky, but kind of a smallish guy. 5'11" is pretty tall. 1978, 25 wins, only 3 losses. A 1.74 ERA. 16 complete games, 9 shutouts, 273.2 innings pitched, 248 strikeouts. Now, do you really think that, and 1978, of course, go down the rosters of teams, some legendary ball players in the league at that time. You really think that if you gave the baseball to Louisiana Lightning and he sashayed out onto the mound, that he couldn't get somebody out nowadays? Or Mr. Koufax? Bob Gibson? I love a story about Bob Gibson. The last game he ever pitched, there was a guy, Pete Lecoq, who actually, Peter Marshall, the the host of the famous Hollywood Squares, was his father. They changed the name for entertainment purposes. But he hit a grand slam off of Bob Gibson. And that stuck in Gibby's mind. Years later, in an old-timers, game, just a fool-around game, Pete Lecoq came up and Bob Gibson brushed him back and knocked him down. In an old-timers game, because Gibby remembered he hit that grand slam. Bob Gibson was also an amazing basketball player. He went to Creighton University, by the way, and actually played a year for the Harlem Globetrotters. So if you, at 6'1", fairly big guy, but by today's standards. So you think that he wasn't a great athlete? Oh, my goodness gracious. So then I went to the so-called modern era because this fella still pitches now, although he's have Tommy John, and he's a Yankee. So Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole is 6'4", 220 pounds. So he's a considerably bigger guy in retrospect to the other pitchers here. So in the argument of the folks nowadays that they're bigger, stronger, better, blah, 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 he is a big guy. 2019, we mentioned the strikeouts. 20 wins, 5 losses, a 2.50 ERA. He started 33 games. He pitched 212.1 innings and had 326 strikeouts. 0 complete games. Let me say that again. 0 complete games. The whole year. But he did. His innings pitched strikeout ratio is amazing. 0 shutouts. He didn't have a single shutout all year. So, in looking at these stats, and you can go on and on and on. I mean, Dwight Gooden with Dr. K and, all these strikeouts and all this. How about Randy Johnson? I think he had 6 years of over 300 strikeouts. So I'm going to kind of, with the modern baseball and the juggling of pitchers and in and out and the computer spitting out analytics and saying, no, this guy can't get this guy out and this guy can't do this and this guy can't do that. I'm going to say that in addition to Cy Young's 511 wins, I don't think you'll see 300 strikeouts again in a year. Last year, I think the most was 228. So, because guys just don't pitch that much anymore. By the 5th or 6th inning, they're all worn out. They're all tuckered out. and, they got to come out of the game. But the modern athlete is so much better. No, and I guess that's the root of my argument in the podcast is that respect history, enjoy the current sport. And certainly there's great athletes. I'm not saying that some of these ball players nowadays are not fantastic. Of course they are. But respect history. Respect the past. I look at discussions online and in forums and, they say, the greatest current player is the greatest of all time, such and such, the greatest of all time. Name the player. In the NHL, I saw a recent thing, Gretzky, Lemieux, Ovechkin's in there. Not even a mention of Gordie Howe. Not even a mention of Guy Lafleur. Not even a mention of any old time. Great defenseman. Oh, such and such. Wait a minute. What about Doug Harvey? What about Larry Robinson? Rod Langway? Ray Bork? Bobby Orr? It's and I get, like I said in the other podcast, everybody thinks their era is the best music, the best cars, the best people, the best beer, the best everything. But take the time to look back on history, because history can teach us so much. And if we respect it and honor it, we learn and we grow. And don't be so short-sighted to just say, oh, yes, Joe Namath could never throw a football. He won't complete a single pass in the NFL because the game has changed so much. No, I think he's still going to throw some bombs to Don Maynard. And Sandy Koufax is still going to whiff a few people. So I understand everything's changed, and maybe it's a nostalgic pining on my part, but I do respect all eras, and I respect baseball in particular and the changes it's made. I do long for the old days, the small ball, bunt a guy over, get a guy on base, steal second, steal third, come back, rally. Don't just hit home runs, and I kind of long for the small ball. But at any rate, we're going to wrap this guy up, and I really appreciate you tuning in here. And you could disagree. You could tell me I'm a ding-dong. Won't hurt my feelings. I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey, and I have my own opinions, and you have yours. Not saying I'm right, not saying I'm wrong. But I do honor history, and I hope this little podcast helps people reflect back on that. No more sports rants for a little while. Our next episode, I hope to record very shortly, will be about some storytelling. After all, about to publish my 51st book, and I find that kind of hard to believe. It'll be my novel about Detective Odell, and we'll talk about some stories. But I hope to have an Easter story come up. And maybe I can tell that based upon a short story in my book, the Spring Collection. It'd be a lot of fun. At any rate, thanks for tuning in, and I wish you the best. And, hey, we'll catch you next time. Thank you.